You hear it all the time in Formula One. The next big thing, the next Senna, the next Schumacher. Anytime a young driver shows real pace, people rush to label him. He's the new Michael. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody likes to say out loud. There is not going to be another Michael Schumacher. You can match his numbers, you can tie his titles, you can even beat some of his records. But the exact combination of who he was, when he raced, and how the sport worked around him, that mix is gone. So today, we're going to unpack why. We'll walk through how a quiet kid from a kart track turned into the most feared driver on the grid, how he rebuilt Ferrari from a mess into a monster, why his dominance was both legendary and controversial, and how modern F1 has changed so much that his kind of career is basically impossible now. By the end, you won't just understand why there may never be another Schumacher, you'll understand why deep down Formula One doesn't actually want another one like him. From kart track kid to instant F1 shock. Michael Schumacher did not grow up like a lot of the drivers you see today. There was no billionaire dad buying a junior team, no private jet, no luxury academy. He was born in 1969 in Hürth, in what was then West Germany. His father ran a small kart track and worked as a bricklayer and mechanic. His mother worked at the circuit's canteen. Michael's first racing career was just him hammering around that kart track for hours in machines that his dad patched together from whatever parts they could afford. If something broke, they fixed it. If a setup felt wrong, they changed it themselves. That's where his freakish mechanical intuition came from, not from a simulator, but from oily hands and late nights in a tiny workshop. He climbed the ladder the old-fashioned way. Junior Series in Germany, then F3, then sports cars with Mercedes. In each category, the pattern was the same.
Like in Adelaide, where he tried to dive inside where there was no room also.
A couple of test days, a short adaptation period, and suddenly he's the quickest guy in the room. His Formula One debut in 1991 is still one of the most outrageous job interviews in motorsport history. Jordan needed a stand-in for the Belgian Grand Prix. They signed Schumacher almost at the last minute. He had never raced an F1 car at Spa before.
But anyway, I have to say, with this car, you can do this qualifying time, you know.
He gets in, does a handful of laps, and qualifies 7th on the grid in a midfield car, instantly faster than their regular driver. Everyone in the paddock suddenly stops and pays attention. That debut set the tone for his whole career. Drop Michael into something new, and he doesn't just survive. He extracts more from it than anyone expects. But as impressive as that first weekend was, it was nothing compared to what he'd become at Benetton. Benetton, speed, suspicion, and the birth of a machine. After that Spa debut, Jordan lost Schumacher almost immediately. Benetton swooped in, signed him, and built their future around him. From late 1991 onwards, he was the center of their universe. Within a few seasons, he became the driver everybody measured themselves against.
And again, now we're with Michael Schumacher. This is lap 65. 2 laps to go at the end of this one.
In 1994, he won his first title. In 1995, he backed it up with another. The speed was undeniable. Aggressive qualifying laps, relentless race pace, almost inhuman consistency. But those years came with a shadow. The 1994 season especially was wrapped in controversy. After the tragic events at Imola and a sweeping ban on electronic driver aids, rival teams started questioning whether Benetton were really playing by the rules. The FIA investigated their engine management software and discovered a hidden launch control feature buried in the code, Option 13. Exactly the kind of thing that would help you get rocket starts off the line. They couldn't prove it had been used in races, so no championship-changing punishment came. But the suspicion never fully went away. Add to that the chaos at the 1994 British Grand Prix, where Schumacher ignored a time penalty and was shown the black flag, or the disqualification at Spa for excessive plank wear, or the nuclear title decider in Adelaide where he collided with Damon Hill. And you get the picture. This wasn't a clean Disney hero story. Schumacher's early championships came in an era where the line between innovation and cheating was razor thin, and where he and his team pushed that line harder than anyone. That pattern, breathtaking performance mixed with moments that looked frankly cynical, would follow him for the rest of his career.
Schumacher, he's blocking, but he's not changing his line in the braking zones.
It made him hated by some, feared by others, and absolutely fascinating to watch. And it was exactly the kind of energy Ferrari needed when they were at rock bottom. When a broken Ferrari gambled everything on one man. It's hard to imagine now, but in the early 1990s, Ferrari was not the unstoppable red machine we know from the Schumacher years. They were chaotic, political, fast some weekends, hopeless the next. The last driver's title had come in 1979. The last constructor's crown in 1983. They had money. They had history. They had Tifosi. What they didn't have was a clear direction. So when Schumacher signed with them for 1996, a lot of people thought he'd lost his mind. Why leave a proven title-winning team like Benetton to join a project that looked like a guaranteed headache? Why swap a winning car for a red diva that broke down every other weekend? Michael saw something else. He didn't just want to win races, he wanted to build something. He wanted to take this messy, emotional, sometimes dysfunctional giant and turn it into a disciplined, unstoppable war machine. His first season at Ferrari proved two things. The car was far from the best. Michael could do insane things with it anyway. The race that really announced the new era was the 1996 Spanish Grand Prix. In monsoon conditions, he danced around the track while others slithered. He won by almost half a minute, lapping most of the field. In a car that had no right to be there, he looked like he was driving a different category. That win wasn't just a result on the timing sheet, it was a message. Give me the tools, and I'll make sure nobody touches us. Ferrari listened. And then the real work began. The workaholic who turned Ferrari into a machine. Here's where Michael Schumacher becomes something you almost never see in modern F1. A driver who is both the spearhead and the engine of an entire organization. Ferrari built a core leadership group around him. Jean Todt running the operation, Ross Brawn masterminding strategy, Rory Byrne designing the cars, and Schumacher as the on-track executioner and off-track development weapon. In an era before strict testing limits, he lived at Fiorano and Mugello. While modern drivers might spend most of their time in simulators, Schumacher would physically pound out lap after lap, sometimes thousands of kilometers in a single week. After every run, he'd sit down for brutally long debriefs, going through tiny details, how the car reacted in one specific corner, how it felt under braking with half a tank versus a full one, how a new suspension tweak behaved on lap 20 compared to lap 3. Teammates talked about his stamina in almost annoyed admiration. Eddie Irvine once recalled how Schumacher came back from a broken leg at Silverstone in 1999, went testing at Mugello, and within a handful of laps was already matching, then beating, Irvine and Mika Salo, despite being out of the car for months. Mechanics described arriving at the track and seeing his car already up on stands, Schumacher's helmet on the table, data screens lit up. He was always there early, always leaving late. He didn't treat himself like a superstar who just showed up on Sundays. He behaved like the team's hardest working employee. That persistence changed Ferrari's culture. The long lunches, internal politics, and "we are Ferrari, that's enough" attitude gradually gave way to a more focused, professional, almost corporate winning machine. And once all the pieces clicked, the sport suddenly had a different problem. How do you stop something like that? The darker edge. When winning at all costs goes too far. To understand why Schumacher is so hard to replicate, you have to look at his controversial moments too. There's Adelaide 1994. Title decider. Schumacher leads Hill in the championship. He hits the wall, damages his Benetton, then when Hill tries to pass, they collide. Schumacher is out on the spot. Hill limps back to the pits and retires. The championship is decided with both men walking away from wrecked cars, and the paddock splits in opinion. Then there's Jerez 1997, another title showdown, Soamadin, this time in Ferrari Red versus Jacques Villeneuve. Schumacher makes a desperate move to block Villeneuve. They collide. This time, the stewards take a harsher view. Schumacher is disqualified from the entire championship standings, his points wiped. Villeneuve keeps the title. Fast forward to Monaco 2006. Schumacher sets a provisional pole time, then mysteriously stops his car at Raskas in a way that blocks the track and spoils everyone else's final laps. Most of the paddock and media see it as a deliberate attempt to freeze the order. The stewards agree and send him to the back of the grid, dead. And between those big headlines, there are the smaller flashpoints: aggressive racecraft, hard squeezing and braking zones, psychological warfare off the track. Even when he won by massive margins, people argued, was it pure genius? Was it bending the rules? Was it both? The answer, honestly, is yes, both. Schumacher was a complete driver, technically brilliant, physically prepared, strategically sharp, but he also carried an edge that sometimes went too far. He apologized for some of those incidents later, but they remain part of his story. In the 1990s and early 2000s, the media cycle was slower. Social media didn't exist. Why modern F1 simply can't create another Schumacher? Even if you cloned Schumacher's talent, gave him his work ethic, and dropped him into karting today, his career would unfold in a completely different environment. First, the testing ban. Back in Michael's Ferrari era, he could test thousands of kilometers during a season, molding the car around his preferences, turning the team into a feedback loop built mostly on his input. After 2009, in-season testing was heavily restricted to cut costs. Now, most development happens in simulators and wind tunnels. Drivers fly in for race weekends, simulator sessions, promotional events, but they don't live at the test track the way Schumacher did. That means no modern driver can have the same hands-on impact on car evolution. Second, data and equality inside teams. In Schumacher's time, there was a clearer hierarchy. You had a clear number one and a number two who knew his job. Support the lead driver, hand over wins if asked, stay in line. Austria 2002, where Barrichello slowed on the line to gift Schumacher victory, is the most obvious, painful example. Today, teams still have favorites, but the information flow is much more transparent. Both drivers have access to the same telemetry, same simulator work, same strategy briefs. It's harder for one man to dominate the entire internal process to the same degree. Third, the cost cap and sporting rules. Modern F1 has financial regulations, wind tunnel time penalties for successful teams, and frequent rule resets to stop long-term domination. It doesn't always work perfectly, but the intention is clear. The sport doesn't actually want one car and one driver to crush the field for 5 years in a row anymore. Fourth, the media and social environment. Schumacher's darker moments would explode today. Every questionable move would be clipped, slowed down, analyzed, memed, and debated for weeks. He'd be trending every time he defended hard into a corner. Sponsors and teams are more cautious now. A driver who repeatedly triggered that kind of storm might face serious pressure to dial it back. Fifth, the driver pipeline. Young drivers today are products of academies: Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, and so on. They're monitored, coached, and, if they don't perform quickly, replaced. Very few get 5 to 10 years of team loyalty to grow with a project the way Schumacher did with Ferrari. Put all of that together and you get this. The system that allowed Schumacher to become Schumacher: unlimited testing, long-term team loyalty, loose cost controls, less intense media, simply doesn't exist anymore. You can get brilliant drivers, you can get champions, but you can't get that exact cocktail again. Which leaves one last question. If the environment has changed, what is left of Michael Schumacher now? Legacy, tragedy, and why he's truly one of one. By the time he took his final F1 start in 2012, most of Schumacher's records filled the stat books. Many of them have since been matched or broken. But records are only one layer of his impact. He changed how teams thought about drivers. No longer just the guy in the car, but a full partner in development, fitness, and mentality. His obsessive preparation set the standard for future champions. Drivers like Sebastian Vettel openly called him a hero and credited him as a direct inspiration. He transformed Ferrari's identity. When people think of the red car now, they think of dominance, discipline, and relentless excellence, an image built largely on the years he spent there with Todt, Brawn, and Byrne. And then there's the part nobody saw coming. In 2013, away from the track, Schumacher suffered a severe head injury in a skiing accident. Since then, his family has kept his condition private. Fans don't get interviews, TV appearances, or new quotes. They're left with memories, old footage, and tributes. That absence created a strange, emotional layer to his legacy. He's simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. His name always in the GOAT debates, his helmet colors still appearing on grandstands, his son racing under the same surname. Yet the man himself remains hidden, protected, almost mythologized. And maybe that's part of why the phrase "another Schumacher" feels wrong. Because when you look at the full picture, the working-class kart kid, the controversial Benetton champion, The ruthless Ferrari leader, the record breaker, the polarizing racer, the man who helped build the most dominant team F1 has ever seen, and now, the legend living in private, frozen in time in the minds of fans. You realize you're not just talking about numbers. You're talking about a story that could only have happened in that exact era with those exact people, under those exact rules. Yes, other drivers will win 7 titles. Others might win more races. Others might build their own eras of dominance. But there will never be another Michael Schumacher. And maybe that's exactly how it should be.